and I have the pleasure to introduce our next panel moderator, and I hope our panelists are already mic'd up. But before that, I wanted to make a note that if you are finding great ideas at this conference, please remember to tweet. We have a hashtag on Twitter, hashtag e-Estonia. So please do so.
Yeah, go ahead.
Cyrus Farivar is the senior business editor at Technica. It's a technology news site. Cyrus is also an author and a radio producer. His book, The Internet of Elsewhere, about the history and effects of the Internet in different countries around the world, including Estonia, was published in 2011. Please welcome Cyrus.
All right. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So how many people here who are not Estonian have been to Estonia before? Raise your hand. So what is that, a quarter of the room, I think? Okay. And how many people, after hearing what you've heard so far, who have not yet been to Estonia, would like to go to Estonia now? Raise your hand. All right, good. So Andrus and friends, you've got some work to do still. So yes, my name is Cyrus Farivar. I am an American journalist. I live up the bay in Oakland, and I want to tell you how much I love Estonia. Seriously, it's astonishing to me how much my life has changed with respect to Estonia. The fact that I'm here on this stage talking to you now, the fact that I wrote this book about Estonia, the fact that hello, Mr. President. For people who don't know, this is Estonian President Toomas Hendrik Ilves. He is notorious in almost every photo I think I've seen of him. He's wearing a bow tie, which I think is a family tradition. And I think this is the first time I've seen the president not wearing a bow tie. I'm sorry, he's wearing a Skype shirt. I'm having a hard time hearing you, so I apologize. All right, I think he said he's wearing a Skype shirt, but Estonia shirt, anyway. Apologies. In any case, I wanted to tell you a little bit about how I came to fall in love with Estonia. I had never heard of Estonia pretty much most of my life. I was in middle school growing up in Southern California. I knew that Estonia was a weird country in some frozen part of Europe that was part of the Soviet Union, and that was literally everything I knew about Estonia until 2005. And in 2005, I read an article that said that Estonia had declared internet access as a human right. That's weird, right? In this country, in Silicon Valley, we've never heard of this idea before. And so I thought, well, what does that even mean? And also, what is Estonia all about, and where is Estonia, and how does this work? And so I started doing more and more research, and this was about the time when Skype was coming about. And I contacted some people, and I came across a gentleman by the name of Veljo Hammer. The Estonians in the room may not know this name, but they may know what he's done and why he's interesting. He started a website called wifi.ee. So if you go to Estonia today, you'll find that there is free Wi-Fi every single place that you can imagine in Estonia. This is largely because of the efforts of this gentleman. He's a young Estonian. He grew up during the Soviet period, served in the Soviet army. But Veljo is really interesting. He took a very simple idea that Wi-Fi should be free and should be everywhere. And I do mean everywhere. I don't just mean like in a cafe, in a hotel, in a conference room. I mean on ferries, on buses, in public plazas, every place that you can imagine. In fact, it sort of surprised me coming here today to this event, sponsored by our good friends from Estonia, that there is not in this room at this moment a free Wi-Fi open network that I could use before I came on this stage to speak. If this were Estonia, there would be these networks everywhere. So, and it surprises me that in 2013, here in Silicon Valley, you have to kind of hunt around for Wi-Fi. I know probably most people in the room have smartphones or 3G hotspots or whatever, but you and I both know that given the choice, you'd prefer a Wi-Fi hotspot. A real bona fide, legitimate, Wi-Fi hotspot. Go to Estonia, they have that. And you won't have to worry about locked networks, and you won't have to worry about lots of other things, paying and getting kicked off and weird login pages and stuff like that. I went to Estonia, I met Velio, he took me around, he showed me not only the technological side of Estonia, but the cultural and the historical side as well. He took me all over the country, he took me down to the deep south in Estonia's forested part in the south of the country. It is a beautiful, beautiful place. And I have fallen so much in love with this country. I have been there several times, and I can't wait to go back. And so I'm very honored to be here today. I would like to invite on to the stage my colleagues, wherever they are. I can't see anything. These lights are really bright. Someone's waving to me in the back. So I would like to invite my colleagues up onto the stage and join me so we can get this underway. Do we have another mic for them, or are they all mic'd? They're all mic'd. Okay, great. Yeah, you want me over here? All right. Okay. So why don't we just go ahead, everybody, give a brief introduction to yourself, and then we can get this started. So please.
Sure. Hello, I'm Scott Miller. I run strategic partnerships at Skype. I've been there for quite a long time, since 2005, when people first started hearing of Skype. I have to say my mom's parents are from Latvia, so I feel a close association, but not perfect. And the first time I went to Estonia back in 2005, I did feel like home. Taavet and the others there made me feel like home. In Estonia. That's what
I'm Steve, you heard about me. My folks have arrived already. We're both from Estonia. With some friends. And as was mentioned, I first got involved with Skype during the first venture round. So they had some angel investment prior, and then we negotiated the first round for institutional capital. My partner Tim Draper on the board, and I act as the cultural emissary to all the meetings, certainly the ones in Tallinn.
Hi, I'm Hinrikus. I spent 7 years with Skype as a first employee in the Labs company, and now I have my own company called TransferWise, which is helping people make international transfers.
Hi, my name is Taavi. I built up one of the largest software development company in Estonia. I sold my share last year, and now I'm working for the government.
Mr. President, was that your dog?
It just went by.
That's my dog.
Yeah.
All right. Other than being president of Estonia, Mr. President, would you like to add anything else to your short biography?
Well, first of all, I'm speaking from my family farm, where my family has been since 1724. So that's what you see in the background, except for the Soviet period when it was completely destroyed. And I would say that in terms of IT, probably the formative factor was that I had a bizarre math teacher who taught me how to program when I was 13. And since then, I've been a firm believer in the power of IT and my connection between Estonia and my IT interests is that already in the early 90s, I thought that was the way Estonia should go.
I think that for me, one of the things that most surprised me when I first went to Estonia was not just that it was a land of free Wi-Fi, not just that it was a land of Skype, but that this extends to so many more things. Could I have one of the Estonians on stage flash your Estonian ID card for just a second? Just so we can show people what this looks like. Okay, this is an Estonian national ID card. If you are a legal resident or a citizen of Estonia, you can get one of these ID cards. You'll note, could you just point to the chip that's on the front? There's a little chip there on the left side. This is roughly the size of an American driver's license. You can pop this card into a little USB reader and access pretty much any government service imaginable. You can pay your taxes. You can pay your speeding tickets. You can vote in a presidential or national election, or election of any kind, really. You can get maternity benefits from the government. You can do all range of any conceivable government service, as far as I'm aware, via a government website through this card. That is incredible to me.
Well, I should interrupt and say,
Please.
well, yes, you can get the government services, but of the 335 plus services offered to our citizens, the bulk of them actually are not government services, but private sector services. And one more government service that we do offer, just in these times of interesting news developments, is that we also offer all people who have the card one of our best levels of encrypted mail possible. So you can encrypt anything. If you have your ID card, it's two-factor encryption with a PKI, or public key infrastructure, or binary key code. There's only one problem, that while it's a virtually unbreakable code, if anyone sends, I read in the newspaper, if anyone sends encrypted mail, that's sort of top priority to be opened up by the NSA.
So if you're Estonian and sending encrypted messages, you might be have your email kept with the NSA.
I didn't quite hear it. The sound is terrible.
How's the NSA interfering?
If you're sending encrypted email, the NSA might have your email.
Well, I'm sure they look for encrypted mail.
All right. In any case, I just wanted to make the point that more broadly, and this is part of what my personal love affair with Estonia, where that comes from, is that the more I dug into Estonian society and saw it firsthand, the more surprised I was that such a place, really exists. I mean, to put it in Bay Area perspective, the entire population of Estonia, you may have heard, is only 1.3 million people. That's the population of San Francisco, Oakland, where I live, and Berkeley, right? That's not very much. So I think if they can do that, over there for Estonia, it would be cool to have a similar system here locally. I would love to turn to our first question, particularly to Taavet, who I think may be the youngest person here on this panel, and probably has, what's I think interesting about Taavet's experience, particularly working with Skype, is growing up in the tail end of the Soviet period and the beginning of the independence period. And I think this is what I really want to drive home to you guys, is that it seems to me that there is something baked into the Estonian experience that I think influences Estonia's interest and passion for technological development. So could you maybe tell us a little bit about how the history that you personally experienced or learned in school, and how that influenced your own trajectory?
I think the interesting part about Estonia is, given that we regained our independence in 1991, we started with no legacy. So everything in the country has been built up in the past 20 years, and it's been built up in the modern way. I've gone to a bank in Estonia once in 1997 to open my bank account, and since then I've done all my banking online. That's kind of the mindset of those people in Estonia, and we've always been looking at how can we build things up in the way they're supposed to be built up, without the constraints that you have with hundreds or thousands of years of legacy, or even 20 or 30 years of a technological legacy.
And I'll just add to that. With that, growing up in that culture, there's also this disruption that's there. It's got to be an Estonian gene. But anytime they can disrupt a business or an industry with that, starting from scratch, they get very excited and very passionate about it. And I just know 8 years at Skype, we've ventured on left and right, but anytime we try to disrupt another business, you get massive cooperation and enthusiasm from the team of talent. When you're just going linear, when you're just kind of going along the way, they're talented and highly skilled and everything else. But the passion is when you can use that base and disrupt an industry, it's there and it's exciting.
And I think we also have to give at least some credit to our politicians, because, for example, this ID card is copied from Finland. It's totally copied. And the only difference is that the Estonian government made it mandatory. And now it works in Estonia, it doesn't work in Finland, even though we copied it from them. So.
Sure. I guess as a expat, so I was born in the U.S., but I've been back many times. What I sense, almost metaphorically, is that when the Iron Curtain lifted in '91, it's as if you had a nation of immigrants to their own country, right, into a new economy, into a free economy. And luckily, it was a fairly young group of people. Unfortunately, a whole co-worker generation decimated by wartime activities, where about a third of the population was shipped out to Siberia or other work camps. And so, coming off a fairly painful background and perhaps a desire to disrupt the past from an emotional experience like that collectively, you have young politicians thinking anew. What other president of the country talks to the sort of about two-factor authentication? That's pretty rare. You have this mindset of, if it's fixed, break it, or whatever. There's some moniker like that falls in. You also have some really bad winters where you hunker down to do some programming, but we won't talk about that too much. And perhaps in cases like Skype and others, you had, this is maybe a weak argument, but perhaps a background issue. You had a programming context that was built on some lesser machines, and building parsimonious code, not being wasteful the way Microsoft was at the time, thinking ahead, even if you're writing code on a desktop, that could eventually run on a mobile phone. Seemed to perhaps follow from the competition researchers of the day. Maybe the last thing that jumps to mind is that you have a group of people that have always had interactions with neighbors, right? The nation's had many invasions in its long history, and so there isn't this sort of, if you just look inward, all the answers will come. There's a big world out there, and in many ways, the folks there seem more entrepreneurial and hopeful than almost any I've met in my limited walks around the world.
Now, Mr. President, I understand that you grew up outside of Estonia, and as Steve mentioned, Estonia is a country now of new immigrants. Can you talk about your experience of coming back to Estonia later in life?
Well, I don't know. I was asked to come back, so.
But I guess what I mean is, like, when you talked about pushing the government in the technological direction. Can you talk about the sense within the government itself, and perhaps from your own administration and your own experience, of moving the country in the direction of more deepening that relationship to technology?